it's your boy Young Love. I give him that time. Pancho leg stand and punchy America. Banyi doll, Pancho leg stand and punchy America. Banyi doll, walk on your leg, Kankara water no watching. Koga leg, gear, pow, leg. Panda with ya, punchy America. Panya doll, Chingatonga Pandon could you ever buy a check? Paku Panda Jiro, what they be doll. Stand up Panchi America, Panji Dwal, Pancha leg stand up Panchi America, Panji Dwal, walk on your leg, Kankaro, what on a watching, Oga level leg, gear, pow, leg, Panda with ya, Panchi America, Panya Dwal, Chingatonga Pandon, could you ever buy a check? Paku Panda Jiro, what they be Dwal.
Welcome to Lagos State Media Beyond Boundaries across the globe, wherever you tune in, from South Sudan, Africa, West, East, both on YouTube and on Facebook. And in the studio with us, we have Edmund Yakani, one of the leading and distinguished activists in our country, and the CEO of CEPO, that is Community Empowerment for Progress Organization. And Edmund Yakani will talk to us about numerous things that are happening in our country. And we will begin our conversation with the issue of extension, of which most of you have seen Edmund Yakani representing the civil society group during the roadmap discussion in Freedom Hall, South Sudan, Juba. And we are here with him to tell us more about the documents. Although some of us read the documents, we need to hear from him. And we also need him to tell us the future of this 24 months extension, which will commence on 22nd of February, 2023, and end on 22nd of February, 2025. He will give us more information about that. Edmund Yakani too will touch the issue of recent extrajudicial killing in Mayom County, Unity State, and he'll also touch issue to do with the insecurity and the ambush of Nimule Juba highway that took place yesterday. And he will also touch things to do with protests which were held in Juba, of which the deputy town mayor, Honorable Tik Mayadit, came out publicly and he made his statement, which is in the public domain. And before I give it to our guests, I'm requesting some of you who are watching here now, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm requesting kindly you need to share this live stream so that your friends or your colleague will get to listen to, and also give us his or her perspective through the comment section. And you are also allowed to ask your questions, which will be answered later on at the end of our interview by our guests. Up to this juncture, fellow countrymen and women, thank you so much. Join me to welcome our guest, Edmund Yakani. Mr. Edmund, you're welcome. Give us your opening remark. Thereafter, we move to the topics.
Thank you very much. I would like to say we are battling with these challenges that you have listed. None of them is a good news. All of them are challenges. Of course, we might have some small developments that we may term them as a good news, but almost 80% of our focus is really on this challenging situation that you can describe it with horrific, you can describe it as with a very disturbing situation all over across the country, but we are pursuing our level best, and the situation in the country becoming everyday political tense, and every day in the country we keep on building culture of anonymity, and our attitudes every day is really diverted far from being nationalist and standing for the nation that we aspire to have when we declare war in 1983 to liberate ourselves. But also the culture of bullying, the culture of dominance, the culture of marginalization and oppressing others is becoming more prevalent among our communities. But we try our level best, some of us, trying to use all possible wise way to make sure that we still maintain the spirit of us standing up as a nation and resolving some those differences that are making us split into different groups. So that's what I can make as an introductory remark. But of course, all this subject we're going to handle is a very controversial topics and specific and extension, where personally I receive a lot of hate speech, leveled, been named and insulted, without somebody who decided to express hate speech against me or leveling me or insulting me or accusing me negatively. Even there's rumors that likely I will become another Atenuek, I may replace Atenuek, which is completely have no any interest to go there because that does not reflect my value. But of course, social media, it have its own way of doing it. I respect people's opinion. First, I'd like to say I've never taken any person's comment as a comment of an enemy. I respect everybody's opinion. You have the right to express your opinion. But I wish that when we're expressing our opinion, we express it responsibly without putting any false information or hate speech, which will not load our information or hate speech. But of course, I have received all those names, those leveling, those rumors. But still, for me, I believe on what I'm doing. I'm not shaken. I'm not so much disturbed. I'm not scared. Besides those who are leveling me, I wish they could have received the threats that I received after that Freedom Hall speech. But still, I'm a nationalist. I will feel proud when I die for the truth than dying for things that does not define the truth, things that make us lose nationalism. I'm a nationalist and might die for standing and promoting and defending nationalism. Besides, I know that some people are so much aggressive when they hear such statements, but I don't care. I don't have approval of my lifespan in anybody's hand. It's with Almighty God, and God knows when He will take my life. So I don't care about whatever people are leveling, they're naming. I know some of them are politically motivated. And maybe before I could go further, I would like to bring this sentiment to attention of your audience. I would like to tell South Sudanese that please take time and listen to some African leaders' wisdoms. Mandela one time, late Mandela one time have said that there's a certain political mindset with some people that whom they see as their enemy, they want people like us also to treat them as our enemy. Your enemy may not be my enemy. My aim may not be your enemy. So please, don't level people because you might have the enemy of the incumbent system in Juba, but I'm not your enemy. If the incumbent system is your enemy, so don't level me because of your enmity with the incumbent system. And don't treat that I should see the incumbent system as an enemy. The same way you don't want me to see you as an enemy, please have the same feeling that also your enemy wants me not to see himself or herself as an enemy. So let's open up the deliberations. Let's focus on the topics you have raised, and let's hear what people will say anyway. As a human beings, we have the right of opinion, and we can express ourselves, and we cannot deny everybody's an opinion. But today, I'm here to correct those false information that have been going on social media about some of us being leveled or have been bought. Even some would reach to the level of saying the oilmen have reached to CEPO account. CEPO now is a government peace mouth who have been bought. Some say I've been promised position of Minister of Finance. So let's open up. Let's see. So I'm ready to pick up the first topic.
Thank you so much, Brother Edmund Yakani. We are living in the society where confusion has taken over the normal reasoning of human being. And the reason is simple. It's because the dark cloud is hanging around the nation. So when people look up, they don't see the light rather. They see darkness. That's why you see them trying to label everyone around with the different names and different titles. Thank you for that. Now we are about to talk about this issue, Edmund Yakani. Extension, we have read about the documents, and many South Sudanese witnessed the occasion in Freedom Hall, where the roadmap was discussed, and President, with his colleague, the 5 vice president, agreed unanimously that we must go for this option for extension for another 24 months. And 24 months will commence next year, 22nd February. Technically, it tells us up to 2025, then we still have more 3 years to go, or to exercise our democratic right as a citizen of that country. And the agreement came in and gave South Sudanese a lot of hope that this agreement might deliver the nation successfully to the right trajectory, which most of South Sudanese desired to be. Unfortunately, the agreement is becoming like a child which is not refusing in her mother womb to come out at the right time. Kindly, can you tell us, you were in the hall, you represented civil society, you read the documents, you have seen it, including the matrix forms of the documents. Kindly, can you elaborate to the citizen and the viewers that are watching what that document contains? And while you are explaining, we expect you to give us the advantages of this extension and disadvantages of the extension. Thank you so much, Edmund.
Thank you very much. I would like to start with where there's this concept of extension, which is labeled as roadmap, which personally I call it as renewal of pledge anyway, because there's nothing new. This idea comes from the following scenarios or following development. One, the agreement have a clear conditioned timeline from the day the government of national unity, which is called the revitalized government of national unity, was established. And those conditioned timelines, it tells that by December of this year, we are supposed to cast our votes in a free and fair and peaceful elections. So that comes February 2022, February 2023, we're supposed to have an elected government that takes over the country and run the country. But there's an article in the agreement also say these elections are supposed to be conducted after we have adopted or we have endorsed a permanent constitution for the Republic of South Sudan. So it means before elections, constitution have to come to function, then we go for elections. Those are conditioned provisions of the agreement. Now, where are we now? We are in August now, August 2022. There's an option at hand. One option is December of this year, we go for elections. So what in August, what does that mean? It means we have only September, October, and November. So 22nd December to cast our votes. Now, when look at electoral calendar, and this is, I'm speaking to the technicalities of the electoral process. When you look at electoral calendar, there are a lot of things that you need to answer them technically. One, the legal framework for the conduct of elections. And this legal framework have primary legislations and some secondary legislations. Primary legislations refers to those legislations that are directly connected with the conduct of electoral process. And per our situation in South Sudan, we have two primary legislations that we need to scrutinize them before we go for elections. What are they? One, South Sudan Political Parties Act, which was amended by the National Constitutional Amendment Committee and taken to the parliament. In the parliament, there were disputes on some changes that were made by the parliament over the content of the amended legislation per the mandate of the National Constitutional Amendment Committee. And that changes, I'd like to make it very straightforward. The dispute is where? The dispute is around numbers of members that each party need to register per state to qualify this state to register, to qualify this party to register as a political party under the law. The numbers were requested that each party that want to register legally as a political party should have 500 members registered, but during the amendment by the National Constitutional Amendment Committee, the numbers were reduced to 300 per state. So when it went to the parliament raised the numbers from 300 to 500. This was disputed by the SPLM-IO. But besides also SPLM-IO themselves were divided. Some have voted for 500 and majority have voted for 300. So that's what people know is very clear. At this dispute, it was not resolved, and then the speaker ran with the disputed version of the Political Parties Act to the presidency, which is by itself is another case that I'll come back to it to explain why is it problematic as the spirit of agreement is concerned. So the Political Party Act is still disputed as we speak per now. That's one of the basic law or primary law that I like to mention as a legislation. The second one is National Election Law or South Sudan National Election Act, which was not yet amended by the National Constitutional Amendment Committee. As per now we're speaking, it's not yet amended, because if it's amended by the committee, then from the amendment goes to the parliament to be endorsed. So these are two basic legislations that you need them to be cleaned up per the provisions of the agreement for us to go for elections. These two legislations, as we speak today, as we speak per now, they're not yet cleaned up. One was cleaned up, the Political Parties Act was cleaned up, but disputed. It means it's still it's not yet clean. The National Election Law have not yet been touched. These are the two primary legislations. But these legislations cannot be used to conduct elections in isolation of secondary legislations. What are the secondary legislations? Legislations to do with the conduct of security and defense institution in providing safety and protection in the elections. It means automatically the National Security Act is very principal as a secondary. The National South Sudan People's Defense Force Act is a secondary. The South Sudan Police Service Act is a secondary. These are other three legislations that have direct link, because why they are secondary? Because they provide safety and protection of the electoral processes. So also they need to be in conformity with that. And by the way, even I will add one more law as a secondary. The South Sudan media legislations, because media play a big role in reporting. Okay, access to information. You have seen the way now how media play a big role in Kenyan elections. So you need to check that to be in line with the two primary legislations. This is something that we need to make it very clear to your audience. So later on, we need to see the conditions that informs the decisions that need to be made as a pathway for moving forward from where we are now. Those two primary legislations cannot be implemented by anybody. They also need to be implemented by institutions tasked to implement these two laws. What are these institutions? We have South Sudan Political Parties Council. Because South Sudan Political Party Council, it is a constitutional institution mandated to register political parties. So, per the agreement, South Sudan Political Party Council need to be reconstituted. And by reconstitution, it means the parties have to share the various job description or job positions or jobs that are enshrined in that council. So this one yet is not yet reconstituted per the agreement. We have South Sudan National Election Commission that will be responsible for implementation of the national election law. Is not yet reconstituted. So these are what we call electoral legal infrastructure or frameworks that are not yet ready as per now we're speaking. Now here you may have so many logical questions, but just put one logical question. If political parties are not legally registered, are they legitimate to run for the elections? That's a question. If the national election law is not amended and the National Election Commission is not reconstituted, if there's any electoral dispute, if you go for election, how do we mitigate it? And what is the guarantee that the current existing National Election Commission is a genuine body that will not take side with one party in facilitating rigging? Those are more questions related to electoral infrastructure or framework, which, if you go to the agreement, these particular issues, at which time where could have been resolved. These particular amendments could have been resolved backward. We could have sorted them out since last year. Last year, at least by July, by June, or by August, if we delay by October last year, we could have dealt with all these concerns. They could have been functional, or even way back up to May or up to March last year. So at least they have enough time to prepare their institutional tasks that will contribute for credible and electoral or peaceful elections. Up to now, those processes are not yet done. That's only within the infrastructure. Then there are other external factors that you need to consider when you conduct elections. What are these external factors? One, our communities, in terms of peace, safety, and security. Our communities are in serious clashes among themselves. The communal violence is taking big shape. And it's clear that even our communities now are demonstrating that they are well armed than our forces. We have reached to the level that even sometimes deployment of state forces to respond to communal violence, state forces start refusing. They'll tell you very clear, we are not well armed as like the communities. And we have seen several leaders that were quoted, and these quotes are in the domain of the public, in the media domain, that we can use it for references. They have mentioned very clearly the communities are armed to the level they cannot confront them. And in some incidents where our armed forces or security forces have tried to confront communities, communities have defeated them. And there's registered records for that, where armed communities have defeated our army. And we have incidents across the country that we can quote, we can refer to them. So that's another factor that you need to consider. For what? You need to consider for certain electable positions or seats, like state governors, like president, unless if we make them only urban town-based campaigns, that you cannot go to the rural community to sell your manifesto. You only want to, you go to read, and only even in the urban setup, it's not a really electoral campaign that you have conversation with the voters in questioning you. You only go, I'm for election, vote for me, bye-bye, I'm going back to Juba, because Juba becomes the center of safety. So that you need to consider. 3, the level of informing citizens. It means the civic education. Civic education in terms of political parties to decide how to campaign, how to launch their campaigns, their engagement. Informing citizens on the electoral process. This could also happen together since last year with the reconstitution and development. These are not in place. Now, if you want to go for elections, as I said, you have basic laws, which have its basic institution to implement. Then you have secondary laws. So let's take the secondary laws, for example, like the 3. The South Sudan People's Defense Act, the National Security Act, the Police Act. They're supposed to be exercised by a force that responds to one central command. It means the principle of the unification of defense and security sector play a very key instrumental role in the conduct of elections. You need to conduct elections where the security and defense institutions are unified. As we speak now, it's just yesterday that Tutkeo, as a security advisor with the unified central command, are telling the nation that they're going to graduate the unified forces, batch 1, 2 weeks from now. So it means 2 weeks from now, maybe towards the end of August or early September, they'll graduate the first batch. And we're going to elect for elections in December. So we don't have a unified forces that we will trust that if there's any clashes among competing parties during the electoral process, we have a national army, we have a national security, we have a armed defense, which mainly army goes for defense, which we don't want them so much, but it's mainly police and national security. That will offer a neutral protection for every political player without taking side with any party prior to the elections. This particular criteria or this particular arrangement is not yet secured per now, as we're in August. So if you're going to go for elections in December with all these challenges, will you have credible and peaceful elections? My assessment as a person and the assessment that we can refer to other players from international level, from regional level, and friends of South Sudan, all the message is stop rushing for elections. UN Security Council have said that. The UN Commission for Human Rights of South Sudan, Yasmin Sika, have said that. The Representative Secretary General in Juba, Hassan, have said that. Now come to the parties. The parties, all of them. And I'm coming out with a report I can share with you. We're doing a media reporting desk review on elections. We discover, even including President, during the 5th Governors Forum, President have said a statement that without rule of law and order, any conduct of elections, he's afraid that the election will be recipe for violence. That's President. And this is when, during Governors Forum. When is Governors Forum? It's not very far. It's about 2 or 3 months. I go back. If you look in May, almost in May here, that's what President said in May. And it's now 3 months. We are now in August. We need to go for elections. But the language of some parties start campaigning for elections or there. But the parties that are campaigning also, from our desk review, even they themselves, their own members told them, are you really sure that if we go for elections, we are not going to be fought? If there's a violence, are we ready to be protected? The campaigning parties are asking those questions because campaign become access to income. So people have to roll out to states to do that. So that is it. Besides that, other factor you need to consider is the civic space and the political space for the campaign. You have seen other oppositions have no space to speak out. IU have issued a statement that companies that are printing their T-shirts, that printing their logos, were threatened to be shut down because they're printing that. Other political parties say we have no space to do rally. Now you say, let's go for elections. It means we're preparing ourselves to go for violence. Now, if you look at if you want to do elections, look at the movement of the president outside Juba, especially for the campaigning party. Even to have a peace rallies, several times we have had the messages they're going to go to Yambio as a president, first vice president. Always they've been cancelled. So it's Juba outside the country, but Juba to the states, it becoming security expensive for the president to move. And this is going to be a potential candidate to contest. So if you put all these factors together, the answer is there's no conducive environment for elections. And this is shared by everybody. How much academic you are, whatever level of paper you have in political science, when you analyze this context, you will zero down by saying no need to rush for elections. So it means what? The options of election is a possible trigger for violence if we rush for it. The option of election become a tool of peaceful transfer of power if we well prepare for it. So it means the language, we are not going to go for elections, but we should focus on well preparation for elections. And by well preparation for elections, it means we provide answers to those challenges that I've mentioned, being it the legal framework or being it the environment around electoral processes or civic and political space for the conduct of elections. And you have seen how media is crying for civic space in order to engage in elections. So based on this, the option of elections is not realistic. That's one option that I'd like to say with the audience, because then we're going to come to argue among ourselves. Now, what next option can be on the pathway? So the pathway that we will end the lifespan of this agreement by elections is proven not realistic. It's proven is a possible trigger of return back to violence. That's clear. And there's other questions that I want to bring. There's so many questions that I want to bring for the issue of elections. The question of how are you going to draw your constituencies with that population census? What is a guarantee that the elected government will not repeat the mistakes of the previous government if there's no constitution that citizens have agreed upon? What type of system of governance are going to apply, since one of the factors that trigger violence is a clash of opinion on the system of governance in the country? What about the refugees and the IDPs? Are they citizens? Do they have legitimate right to have a say on any political processes? So how are you going to design electoral processes that you will take to account the participation of IDPs and refugees? Will the camps, meaning for IDPs or refugees, be an area where you can zero constituency based on what formula? Are we going to the American way, where you can say we use the principle of, if you want to be a legitimate voter in the elections, then use what you call the voter register? So these are all several concerns that need to be answered to define what is called conducive environment for election and well preparation for election, and making sure that the election is inclusive, the election is based on the principle of a democratic exercise of transfer of power from one political establishment to another, or from one person to another. So all these over million questions that require million answers, we can't answer them within the month of August, or from August up to the end of November. So providing those answers, it means we are not ready for elections from now up that period of time. Forget about political trust among the principal of the parties, if they really will provide genuine answer to these concerns with their political grievances. So it means what? The option of election is not already a viable option. What next? So this is the option of election, option one. Option two, let's think about toppling the system. And this I'll connect with little bit of messages that come from Deputy Mayor. Let's get to the streets and let's adapt the latest experience. Sri Lanka way. Let's walk to J1 and overtake J1. So now maybe the president will resign. Or we go the Iraq way. Let's go to the parliament and overrun the space of the 660 MPs. So now we find a way of the leadership resigning. Or let's go the Sudan way, or what do you call the Arab Spring way. Let's go to the Freedom Squares, and our Freedom Square is already, by the way, round up, it's fenced up. Your entry by itself is questionable if you want to pass through it. So let's go that way. Now, you have had several messages from our leaders. Whoever temper want to come to the street, no tear gas, no water cannon that we are going to spray on you so that you run around alive and you assemble yourself. No rubber bullet so that we scare with you, we hit your skin so you run away. So what we have is live bullet. And the live bullet we have, yes, some people say, why are we coward and scared? We have seen the one of Konyo Konyo. I was there, I seen it for myself, practical on the ground. We have seen it. So the concern comes, are our security agencies professional enough to respect the constitutional rights of peaceful strike and assemble? Though in some democratic countries still you will lose some lives. If you look at Sri Lanka, at least the 5 people who went have lost their lives. Who is ready for that? Because the Konyo Konyo way, with the first bullet, boom, people raise the placards. Those who are behind it, they're the first to run to hide and see the safety of those whom they put on the front line. So the question of the energy, the spirit of us getting to the streets, but also if we get to the streets, the consequences, are we ready for it? Obviously, the consequences is something that one citizen decide. Like I remember last time in this particular space I've shared with you, I've said citizens are like water. When they decided to come, it's going to be, you can't prevent them. Citizens are like water, what I've said before. So it depends on when will citizens turn to become a water and confront, even if they lose lives of millions, they will say, enough is enough, I better die because I want to see a change. And that particular moment, in my assessment, in the spirit of citizens, have not come for, because politicians have divided us on ethnic line. People want to see who are the first people who go to the state, which particular ethnic group. Then the politician who came from another ethnic group say, now go and clear them. So the strength of mobilization for what they call civil disobedience or popular uprising, it can't work. It can't be realistic until you have that sense of people stand up as nationalists. And the question is there any moment that politicians should start thinking about that? I will say, if you look at the impact of the imposed dredging of the rivers and Jongole Canal have made citizens to start forgetting about tribes. That no. These things of why I think about our ethnicity is becoming a problematic. It's weakening us and is giving leaders to loot us. That have increased. Even the extension, by the way, of the last one of the agreement have started making citizens think about no. I don't think now ethnicity is the cut. These people have abused us with ethnicity. Time has come. So debates are going. And that's what I'm saying. That moment will come. The failure of these 24 months or 2 years, if it fails, the politicians will not see that they are going to face the same citizens. They're going to have a different citizens that will never anymore buy in any excuse of ethnicity for anything. That moment is coming. So it means that particular concept per now is not easy. Now, you may take another step in this particular analysis. You can say, look here, let's go and think about technocratic government, which I spoke about it. I told the politicians, if you fail to reach consensus on the pathway, technocratic government is the option. And some people hear this word technocratic actually become a big red line, worse than corruption, worse than being named as a human rights violator. There's a period technocratic in just some less than 2 weeks or 3 weeks in Juba. The word technocratic, it seems like you are calling for regime change immediately. The way they will run after you when they hear that word, it becomes problematic. We tested the waters here. But of course, technocratic government need an entry point. So how is the entry point? The entry point for technocratic government, like if we are supposed to go for what you call national stakeholders consultation, if the party could have accepted that, okay, we are defeated, in the next 5 months before we do anything, we extend our mandate, let's go for national roundtable to agree with the citizen and to agree with other political establishments. How are we going to cross, or how are we going to move after the 5 months when the lifespan of the agreement comes? That particular spirit among the political parties is not in the team. Why? Because they love power. They want to remain in power. And legally, per the agreement, they got chance. And I wish those who were with us in Addis, the article that provided the chance is one of the articles we disputed in Addis. And opposition were leveling us when we disputed the article that we are bought by the government. But now the same people who by then fought us in Addis, I know them, I don't name them in this platform, today when they use that article, the government starts saying we are bought by opposition. So it depends on whose interests are you responding to. That time we have been leveled or bought by the government. Now we have been told we have been bought by the opposition. Which article is this? Is Article 8.4. Now, if you read Article 8.4, Article 8.4 gives a legal framework for amendment of the revitalized agreement. Any amendment of the revitalized agreement must go in line with Article 0.4. Article 0.4 have given prerogative, primary prerogative for the parties that are signatories to the agreement to trigger any amendments. And if you read that in line with the preamble of the agreement, and specifically the third or the fourth paragraph of the preamble agreement have defined what is called parties as a signatories to the agreement. One party is called IG. IG is composed of SPLM, led by His Excellency President Salva Kiir, SPLM-IO, led by His Excellency Vice President Taban Deng, because they call themselves IO for Peace, per the 2016 crisis. Then you have the OPPs, who are in the government, you have the national agenda, you have the national alliance who are part and parcel, and that national agenda is Honorable Martin Ilia Lomuro. What do you call national alliance is Odigo Onyoti. So this is IG. The other one is IU. The other one is SOA. The other one is FD. The other one is OPP outside the government. But of course, the definitions of OPP have been amalgamated. And you have heard in the Freedom Hall when somebody was saying, we the two OPP, we need to be met as a one. When the OPP speaker was speaking, he raised to the president as a one of his concern when we were in Freedom Hall. So they're given the prerogative per their description in the preamble of the agreement. And if you read that particular paragraph of the preamble of the agreement, in line with Article 8.4 of the Revitalized Agreement, where it says it is the parties that trigger. So we as a stakeholders, we have nothing to trigger. Anything, if we want a consensus through a round table, is much more based on the mercy and the spirit of the parties. But because the parties love power, they reach consensus. Let's close it. Let's close it. And the trigger, they close it. So we start shouting when they close it. We say, look here, this is a national political process. You can't isolate us. Let it be inclusive. They say, yes, we embrace inclusivity. But the article have empowered us to trigger it. And that took us 3 weeks. Me in person, 3 weeks. I've been moving from one party to another, shaping the concept of the roadmap. So based on this interest, the parties have reached to the level that the moment you go to the street, they're ready to clear you all. So this is a second option for our pathway. So what is left here? Since the parties have reached consensus that they don't want any consultations, national consultation. And remember, national consultation have been called by several actors. We have called for stakeholders roundtable on the roadmap. And later on, we see other actors coming in. We have seen the establishment of the other opposition parties, which people describe them as holdout groups, which I don't like this word holdout groups. They are legitimate political oppositions. Whether they are some are under Mayom or some are under Thomas Cirillo and others that came and joined under the Rome Peace process, they have called, and opposition and the people who are in the government and who later on left the government, like Dr. Lama have called for that consultation, and other civil society establishment like the PCCA and the rest have called for that consultation. So almost everybody called for that consultation. But because the parties, they're empowered by Article 8.4, if you read it together with a paragraph of the preamble, they decided to consensus that no, if you bring them in, things will be messy, lock them up. So the principle, in particular, His Excellency the President and First Vice President agree that the process of the amendment have to be locked up. So it means option is not there. But the same consensus, if you get to the streets, they will lose all their forces against you because that's the consensus they have reached. So the option of toppling the government is not realistic and it's not functional, and nobody will be ready for that because everybody fear to die. People have to first, when it come hot, you're the first to evacuate yourself before the citizens. So those are the challenges that are existing on the streets of Juba. So the other third option is now extension of the lifespan of the agreement, which of course many people refused. But I would like to tell them that where does that come? If you look at option 1 of the election, now if you look at option 2 with its various approaches, whether being technocratic or getting to the streets or going for a dialogue, which all have no space for functioning. So the other option is now extension. So now when we start thinking about extension, the question comes, do we need to retain a relative peace and ceasefire in the country? Is it important? If it's important, then yes. With the two options we don't have, what do? Extension become imminent. If we're not going to go for election, do we agree to find a way that they run away with any political legitimacy, that we can question them for check and balance, and we can force them to follow up some political processes? If you say no, then extension become an option. So extension become a practical option at hand, which by theory, maybe you may dispute it, but practically is the only option at hand. Now, what type of extension? That's why some of us have been calling, we don't want a blanket extension. We need an extension that customized with clear actions, and an extension that we get confirmation of grantee that what they failed to do in the last 3 years, they have changed. That convince us that in the 2 years they will do something. And also, we don't want to see that extension start being used technically as elections. By the way, now they can say extension become a tool of extending term of office in term of office. Because extending 2 years, another extending 3 years, you keep extending your term of office by the concept of extension. We say we don't want that approach. So what does it mean? It means we need now to be innovative and creative to deal with extension in a better way. Then, for people like us, we check every constituency. And I remember we as an organization, we conducted a quick public opinion polling in the 10 states, capitals, targeting 1,000 random selected category of people. And the option, they say election is not the option. The option is that extension, but it won't be a long extension. Which later on some of the audience, I don't know whether they are listening to us here, who tend to say the government pay us money for doing that consultation. I wish they have a check or they have a bank details that they can prove that we have received money. We have not received money from any party. We just took it as a civic responsibility. Neither a penny, whether from opposition or from the government, we have not received, whether from donors. We took it because we want to check citizens, because we are not speaking for ourselves, we are speaking for the citizens. So citizens say elections they fear, and they don't trust the politicians for having peaceful and credible election. It will be communal election rigging, and if elections is imposed on them, it means the politicians will impose another 5-10 years of office. Again, they will create another extension of 5 years, so the agreement is dead and there's no answer to the political questions of issue of governance. So committee said, let's go for extension, but not long. So after the public opinion polling, some of us start moving to the parties one by one. So the tech that we stood for the concept of extension was not out of blue, or that we have been bribed or we have been paid money for. We have weighed all the options academically, scientifically. Where is it? And there's a resistance. Should we declare war now, or what is it? Those are the all analysis that we took into account. And then extension became an option. So immediately, SPLM in the government drafts an extension plan, what is called the zero draft of the roadmap. Then the Minister of Cabinet Affairs and the Security Advisor put it before the President. And later on, IO jam up, they say, no, that's an IG or SPLM roadmap. We are not consulted, we have not seen it. Other political parties jump up, and also we civil society say, no, we are not consulted. We made it very clear. We are not consulted for that draft. So what next? The next thing is that a quick meeting of President and First Vice President was commissioned. And in that meeting, they agreed to establish a committee that represents all the political parties in line with the spirit of Article 8.4, where all political parties have to be engaged. So now they run consultation among themselves with legitimate representation. And the presidency, that means his president, first vice president, and other vice president, reach unanimous that this process must be a close process. So it means they themselves, they don't want like dialogue. All the political parties have agreed, let it be close. But we can do consultation of different constituency. So when we heard about that as civil society, and in person, me, we start calling for that process to be opened up. We want to see the document. Completely, we couldn't see the document. We push. We couldn't go. But we did a lobby. Besides that, we've been lobbying the political parties. Now, just to minimize time, because I know people ask questions. When we are called to make our inputs, which is only 3 hours, by the way, and the call was being made for every civil society who is signatory to the revitalized agreement. We are called by the office of the Minister of Cabinet Affairs on behalf of the committee. So for your audience to get it clear, because I need to put the facts here, so for those who accuse me. One, I was called a signatory from the civil society. Then Reverend Enoch Tombe was called on behalf of Faith Base. The Muslim representative was called. Moses Machar was called on the eminent personnel. Then, when they called others, they couldn't reach, they called me. That helped me to reach out to other colleagues. I reached out to one of the civil society signatories, Sarah Nyanas. She was in Nairobi. She told me she's not in Juba, she will delegate somebody. We have other women bloc was called. Another one was called Mary from the women bloc, from Women Coalition. Rita was called. She's not around. Mary Nyanath, there's another Mary was called from Women Bloc. She's around. Then one of the civil society he's dead. He's a Muslim, he's dead. One is called Engineer Al-Kai, who is for the behalf of the concerned citizens. He's in Kampala. So all of us who signed were called to report in that period of 2 hours. So we went. But of course, for somebody like me, when we're going there already, we knew we have influenced individuals in the parties of what we think as the best way of the extension. So when we went to the cabinet, we are around 5 out of those who signed. So when we went in, we asked to make our inputs. The first thing we asked them, before we could decide whether to make inputs or not inputs, we have the following question. We checked credibility of that particular committee or meeting. We first asked them, are you all here official representatives of the political parties that signed the agreement? They say yes. And when further, we say we need to confirm you by party before we make any choice. Ayo, where are your delegates? Minister Martin Abucha was there. And I know there's somebody from Western Baragazal who is close to Riak, is tall, brown. And then there's another Nuer guy. 3 of them, they say they're official delegated by the leadership of Ayo to represent Ayo. We say, okay, we confirm you. We ask SOA, are you around? Minister Josephine Lagu and Sang-Son Chang and plus other, they represent SOA. They are there. We say, okay. Now, we came in, we asked FDs, are you in? Dr. Majak Agor was inside the hall. We asked OPP, Deputy Minister of Defense and others, they're inside. IG, Michael Makwe is inside there. Then Odigo Onyoti was inside there as the part of the IG definition. So the IG are all there. We say, okay, we confirm they're all there. Then we ask them, is the document you're going to present to us, have we reached consensus? They say, yes, they have reached consensus. So because we knew that they want us to rubber stamp, we are aware that we are called for rubber stamping. It's not an intended purpose, because if you want to consult us as a constituent civil society, you could have given us this document 1 day or 2 days before our meeting so that we read it. And also, we are not alone. We have other people that we can consult, other civil society that may not have access, especially which are in diaspora. But we knew we are going to rubber stamp because the aim is for us to walk away. When we walk away, they say, yeah, we call them, but they walk away. So it's up to hell with them. After all, politically, the responsibility is with us. It's not with them. They are just for inclusivity. For the sake of inclusivity. So we took decision. We said, okay, what is it? The options that came for the extension that the parties are thinking of, the parties are not thinking less than 3 years extension. IO want to go for 3 years. IG want to go for 3 years and a half. We pulled it up. We came back to 2 because we don't want to see long-term period of time. And the 24 period, technically, it was 18 months for the implementing agreement. What is the 18 months? Is the timeline for constitution making, the timeline for the elections. Then 6 months were added because of electoral political processes. That's what made 24 months. That's what we reach on. And that's why we are concerned that if we don't, and you remember very well our politicians, you can reach with them consensus on the table in a closed door. Publicly, this document becomes something different. We have seen the Constitution, Article 101. Before the independence, that article was not so powerful like the way, but one person went and draft and add more things, and when it was signed to disclose physically, it's a different thing. Even the Political Parties Act, the document is different. So already there's experience also that if you don't follow the document very well, the chance of this document will be amended very easy. And that's why we've realized, okay, since the option is now extension, and we don't want a long period, we must commit suicide against the politicians. And the suicide was to walk out of the meeting and disclose that the extension is not more than 24 months. Anything more than 24 months, we don't see it. And they were not happy. I remember that day when I spoke to iRadio and I disclosed 24 months, I received more than 7 security calls of threats. Who authorized you? And some colleagues in the social media were saying, I've now been empowered to be more powerful than McQuay and Ateng to disclose a government interest. When we're not disclosing government interest, we're locking them up. Because they lock up them up, they will extend to 3 years because we realize their concept is longer period. And the argument is that you cannot do a constitutional making process that are citizens in less than 2 years or less than 3 years. That's the argument they have. So they want to go for longer period. But we insisted that, okay, from all options, there was, but at least from the worst options, there's somehow a convincing option, and that's the extension. And that's why when we disclose it, that's why when we were called in the Freedom Hall, I made a very clear speech. What miracle are they going to do in the 2 years' time that they failed to do in the 3 years period? 3, even if we give them 100 years As long as they don't change their political attitudes, specifically the principles, working together and agreeing that time has come for them to exercise their primary responsibility to deliver the country peace and stability. If they don't have that consensus, even if you give them 100 years, they don't implement the agreement. That's one thing I've said. If there's no money for the implementation agreement from the oil revenue, we can't implement. And that's why I say, that's why I asked President, there's a trend. Since you have crude oil for road construction, crude oil for covering salary areas, you give crude oil for peace. So that you don't blame people. And previously they said the revitalized agreement was imposed on them. I say now this roadmap is yours. This time round, you cannot say anymore that this thing is imposed. It's you who developed the roadmap. This is your last chance. So in conclusion, I would like to tell those who feel that some of us are bored and some of us are what, it's not. It is a question of reality. It's a question of facts check on the ground. And our only pathway now, what we need to do, and which already for me, I will tell you that my assessment of the streets of South Sudan, this is a last chance for the politicians to play around with the patience of our citizens. I don't think this patience can go beyond the end of the 2 years. I have to be honest with you. And you have seen what happened in Konyo Konyo. And that's why I was challenging the president. How comes today £1 is $65? And by the way, some of those speeches were edited. I communicated to the president before they could go to the gallery. How comes that people in central bank auction dollars in black market rate? Imagine that time, the central bank are auctioning dollars at 6 point something. What will the black market respond? The black market will respond more than 6 because they want to make profits. And the auctioning of the money, who are the beneficiaries? We know forex bureaus that are owned by the same politicians who are making decisions for auctioning and commercial banks. So we ask President, a lay person who is not an economist like me, why don't you get the dollars from central bank and go buy for us food in Kenya, services, bring to the market as a government, minus taxes, impose to the market. This will reduce the rate. And we use a practical example. We told them, look here, Aleu in Warab. Aleu realized price in the market is too big. Aleu went to Sudan, brought some Dura, some sorghum, and put in the stores. And automatically the price of Dura, before Aleu's Dura goes to the market, the prices fall down. It means you need to fight the market by offering alternatives, by not auctioning dollar, because they have turned dollar to become a commodity. That people go buy dollars from central banks, store them. They mean there's no dollars they sell out because we have turned dollar to become a commodity. It's no longer a question of a purchasing power. It's become a commodity. You need to buy dollars, and some people are trading on dollars. Their products become dollars. Their commodities become dollars. So it's a mistake of the state. And that's why some people are saying, I receive calls, my brothers who are listening. Some 3 people call me, Edmund, your speech have made us to lose our Minister of Finance and the Governor of Central Bank. You are responsible and we will hold you accountable. You will see what you will get from this game. And these are beneficiaries of the hash. These are the profiteers of the Western economic situation. So that is the first issue I would like to share. Maybe, I don't know whether, should I move to the other questions so that I receive questions once, or should we end up here and receive concerns that come from citizens?
Thank you, Edmund. It has been one of the long analysis, but it was that time, almost 1 hour. And remember, we have a lot to discuss, but you need to give them in summary, because the idea of extension has already been given out and citizens accepted it because they had no alternative. As you have well analyzed it, there is no alternative and there is no way out. And the common interest, that is a roadmap, nobody can disagree. According to the current bureaucratic government in Juba, no one can object it, whether a commissioner at the grassroots level up to the presidency. All of them agree to that because it is a common interest. Exactly. And it accommodates all of them. So it's the question of a certain tribe, which is called government, the current government, and then the 64 tribes that are suffering in Eastern Equatoria, Western Equatoria, in Bahr el Ghazal, in Apanal region. So it is them versus citizen. So the question here is, I will, in regard to that topic, I'll ask only 3 questions. Number 1, do you think, as Edmund Yakani, that this extension period of 2 years. And if we count from now, then it tells us almost 3 years. Do you think this period will be enough for the political parties to the agreement to implement it fully? Is there a political will among them? Will they even build trust between the leadership and the citizen? And remember, the last 3 years were occupied by the foreign donors. And Trica was one of them, leading in financing the implementation. But the 3 years extension, the financial aspect of it will squarely, or 60%, will rely on South Sudan government. And 40%, the 25 might come from Arab's world, of which we have a good negotiator called Tutkeo, will write to the Arab worlds to give us money for implementation. But the 15% might come from the well-wishers, that who are happy with how Kir and Riak are running the country. Do you think that they will get finance if this period is given to them as it was given? Will they have finance, adequate finance to implement it? Will the economy of the country regain a bit of growth? Or will it get worse? Considering the rebellions and attacks that are happening now, for the last 2 weeks of extension, Mr. Edmund, you have seen the darkest time in our country. There is attack in Nimule Road, there is attack in Mayom County, and nobody knows what will happen at the end of this year. There is hyperinflation in the market. What do you see between here? Do you think this transitional period will end successfully? Or do you see interruption between here? Second question, Edmund, your fellow activists and especially the civil society groups, some of them reach out to us and condemn you that what you did was unilateral decision. No any civil society personnel has agreed with you to make it. This is our position as civil society group. The question there is, do you civil society have a legal body that represent you? And if yes, are you one of the executive members in civil society group? The third question, in regard to the extension period, Mr. Edmund, if government has really failed for the last 3 years to implement even chapter 2, then what do you think? This the training army, which is due to be integrated or unified, do you think these people have really gained adequate knowledge that they will stand up as a national army, not as individuals, militias? Thank you. I give you at least 5 minutes or even 10 minutes for those two things so that we can move to other topics.
Next step, other topics, and then maybe also receive questions from others who are outside there. I'm going to be just straightforward answer without any more explanation too much. Question 1. The success of the extension for the 2 years is not solely depending on the trust and confidence among the parties. It's solely depending on the trust and confidence between His Excellency President Salva and his first Vice President. We are really so much sabotaged by the deficit between the two. And you have seen during the Freedom Hall, I raised it up this, and Dr. Yakmasha referred to it. If His Excellency President Salva and His Excellency First Vice President reach consensus, we are being in a shift that even things can be done in 1 month. Because the rest are audience behind them. So that's the main factor for the success. Because even if you want to inject money into the implementation, is depending on the trust between the two. Even if you want to do things professionally, like the graduation, is depending on how they view the concept of unification of the army, the two. Even if you want to improve the economic situation is improved based on change of political attitudes among the parties to the agreement, and the strength of the parties to the agreement is so much vested on the strength of the trust and confidence between His Excellency President and First Vice President. So that we don't use the word day to institution that we don't know. We need to be more specific. Specific is President and First Vice President. If the two have a political attitudes of working together, it's easy to shift the trend. Look, signing of the roadmap. What happened the following morning? The dollar falls down. So it means the market forces that drive the rate of the dollar is so much vested on the political attitudes of our political leaders. So in other words, we're not broke. We have money, but the political behaviors and the political practice that we have in the country is much more centered on meeting individual interests than the interests of the nation. And that's why the market dances the tune of the individual interest rather than the interest of the citizens. So for me, that's the point of the success. And I will tell you, without the two changing their political attitudes for working together, these 2 years, even if extended to 100 years, it will not succeed. And that's why I used to say, if South Sudan failed to grow as a successful and developmental nation, we blame nobody. We blame the presidency. Blaming political parties sometimes for me is not genuine. The genuine target is the presidency. Those who sit the presidency are responsible for the situation right well. Let me tell you something, my brother. Why people who are living in Uganda are buying milk in Juba and flying them to Uganda? Besides all this situation, it means prices of milk is more affordable than the prices of milk in Uganda. If you check passengers, they put a lot of milk from Juba and they're flying them to Uganda. Some families fly with 3 tins. So it means we are not badly off economically. We are economically suffering because of political behaviors that are not responsible for the best interest of the citizens. Otherwise, if we are to shift behaviors, we can be fine. We can be nice. Even the revolutions that comes, these revolutions are not because people love to rebel. People responding for the behaviors, the political practices, force them to rebel. So if there's a shift in the political behaviors and the political processes, you can easily mitigate the revolutions that are happening. Those revolutions are responses to the political setup of how things are done in balancing between meeting individual interest and public interest. So, you know, you will render, for example, let us use one case study, the case of Mayom, which I'm going to talk soon about it. What's the problem with Stephen Boy? The problem with Stephen Boy, you allow democracy to function, you allow services to go, and you allow things. He will not have any ground to mobilize. Anybody cannot mobilize. If really the state is run by the prescription of administering public affairs by the constitutional provisions. But because we're not using the legislation we have, we're not using the laws we have, that's why people take advantage of saying, no, we don't want this practice because this practice is not in line with our constitution. This practice is not in line with the best interest of South Sudan. So for me, the extension completely depends on His Excellency President and First Vice President political attitudes and practices. If there's a shift in them, even in 3 months, we can do wonders if they shift their attitudes. So now answering the unification of the forces, my brother, honestly, today I was on an interview with several media houses. I was telling them, yes, 2 weeks from now, we need to graduate the forces. But my worry is that we may enroll civilians into uniform. Civilians may be dressed uniform and graduate, and you believe this. While tomorrow, when you see them as unified forces, we'll be surprised to see the way how they behave. Because even if up to now, the unified central command are not operating as a unified central command, what about the soldiers that you are going to graduate? So there's a lot of work need to be done. But anyway, they need to commit themselves to deliver an action. And that action must be genuine action, should not be a rubber stamp action. A rubber stamp action, we'll see the consequences next tomorrow. If we did it today, next tomorrow we'll see it. It will not take long. It will be reflecting itself. So it's a primary responsibility of the president. And actually, even this way of how the country is behaving is a question of political leadership. And political leadership is where? It's in the presidency. Even the act which happened in Mayom, it's a complete challenge to authority of leadership, the way our soldiers behave. Where is the leadership? So everything, and that's why personally, I'm somebody who's calling that before they could roll out the roadmap, which will start from 22nd February 2023, we need the presidency to meet. And that's why when we are in the Hall of Freedom Hall, I personally requested, and we didn't get a response. I requested, President, we need to meet them. Because so that what we are expressing here, we express to their face in their front. That's why I told them we're not generation of revolution. We're a generation of check and balance. We will never leave you. We'll never jump to the bush to make you satisfied. We will not be followed that day. The Bakanal Haganal Mashafiu Betriga said that we follow it there. So we are not here to keep quiet. We are here to tell them the truth. They want to kill us, let them kill us. But they don't kill the demand. The demand will remain. So for me, that's really the big issue. That's a big issue, that if the two principals have not changed their attitudes, these 2 years extension is nothing. And it will not be better than what they have wasted in the 3 years that they are unable to do anything. If you implement only 25% in 7 years, and you have over 70 something plus or 80 plus, will you implement in 2 years? If 23 years, you only deal with 25%. Now you go for 75%. Will you do in 2 years? Academical, logically, that doesn't make sense. But if that is simply because of political attitudes, that's my answer to the question of the revolutions. Asking the question of the civil society. You know, one thing I was asking people, when in 2015 we were invited by IGAD, who was that person that have authority and told IGAD, go and invite so and so and so and so and so to come? Why that time there's no legitimacy of constituency that called civil society? We are invited by our performance, by the observation people have seen how we behave institutionally on the ground. And that's why I went and created a civil society forum, because we need to coordinate our messages when we're already invited by IGAD individually. There's nobody who have given license that Edmund, you should be one of the civil society to go to the negotiating table. It's IGAD which invited us directly. And the IGAD justified because of the way how we reach and our establishment and our connection with citizens. And let me tell you, there's nobody that is a legitimate civil society that will accredit another civil society to go to the table. We should not behave like political parties. That somebody want to create an umbrella to control opinion. Have you seen here? There's nobody. But I would like to tell you, part of these so-called civil society, some of them are politically motivated because I don't have political interest. Some of them even reach out to me. I don't name them here. They reach out to me with political leaders' messages. For them, they thought that message is new. I was in interaction with some of the political leaders. I knew the message that delivering to me is a message of politicians, that I was interacting with them. And some of the ideas I've told the politicians are, yes, in ideal, your idea is good, but in practice, these things can't work. So I saw somebody who came to me to my office. I don't mention him by name. He came to me to office, lobbied me to boycott the process. I was telling him, I said, my friend, I'm a neutral. I cannot allow this politician to run with our future on the table, and we are outside. You are constantly boycotting that. I don't know what does it mean. And I told him in my office in Juba. And the same person went and wrote a statement that they are civil society organization. I said, my friend, why don't you write yourself? Because I confronted him. I said, why do you use the word we, the civil society, while it is you, and I know you, and I know their language? Because we are consulted. And to the shame, some of them think that they are going to level me that I'm a self-proclaimed delegate of the civil society to the process, which I was invited. Actually, by the way, the invitation for me to be in Freedom Hall was negotiated. By the way. It was last person who came, no, please, let's have the civil society space. I rejected. But because also the question is that I want to send this message that you have had in the Freedom Hall. If I don't take that platform, I cannot convey that message where there's a president, because it's rare for us to meet Council of Ministers, but they're there, all of them. So they've got the message. And some of them think that if I stood up there, I'm going to rubber stamp. I'm not rubber stamping. I communicated my message. So some of these individuals have personal issues. This is one. Some of them lose influence. Now they think like, let's be all outside because we need to level Edmund that he goes there legitimately on his own. And we don't have a body. We don't have anybody that we have authorized that you are in charge of where we need to go. Now the question comes, when some of them are invited, why somebody like me don't complain? If wasn't an issue of emotions and egos, some of them are expressing emotion and egos, the same thing of our politicians. Some of them even are tribalistic. Some of them attack me on tribal line. And I know them for quite a period of time. I saw in the social media. I don't want to respond because I don't respond for emotions and egos. The same emotions and egos are the one expressed by our politicians that have made our country to suffer. So some of these civil society, which I have to tell them here, they can confront me wherever they are. Those are political motivated and ethnic oriented. I don't respond to them because I equate them as equal as the politicians. I wish they would have come and asked me, Edmund, justify to us the reasons why you think option of extension is better. And then I give them. There are some who have come to me rationally, we have argued with them. But I know some of them is frustrations of egos and emotions, and they want to fire. But I don't respond to this because I see it's an irresponsible behaviors of some people who claim. And some of them are individuals who just go and write a statement in the name of the civil society. I know them. There's none of them that cannot come and confront me face to face. I don't know them. Some of them have political motivation. They want to use civil society as a ladder, the same way politicians use violence as a ladder to power. I know them. I wish they could have confronted me. So I want to tell them that I respect opinion. I respect the insults. I respect the level that they did for me. But the truth, one day, the street of South Sudan will prove it. If whether I'm political motivation, some of them reach to level of saying, I'm going to be Atang. Some say, I'm going to be McQuay. I'm going to replace McQuay. Even some say, let me become the governor of central bank. Some say, let me be himself. I won't tell them these are all rubbish. I have seen offers more than that was thrown to me. Some of them be like, you go to UN, you go to where, offers that are coming legitimate from the voice of the people. But I refused because I stand for our people. So if I did something today that does not respond to your interests, I'm really urging you. I respect you. Never level me for that. Don't behave like politicians that today, if we favor one party or our opinion match another party, like previously, when we go to Addis, McQuay will tell us some IOs are flying with us in the plane. Then IOs clap hand. When we do something that favors IO against IO will say, oh, look here. Now those of Salva have been buying you with the money because you stay in Juba. So it is an emotional and ego of personality that they're losing. So I don't waste my time for that. That's why in social media I didn't respond because some of them are now coming and apologizing to me. Edmund, we're sorry. You see me issuing that statement. I was not informed. I didn't know. You know, they present you. I told them, look here, I don't seek consent of, yes, collective voice is very important, but collective voice not in aggressive and arrogant way. So this is what I say. Coming to the last question.
Now, before you move to the last question, Brother Edmund, we need you to make it clear to the audience. Do you have like a governing body, a civil society, or not?
Not.
Okay.
There's a not. Let me give an example. Let me give you an example. Their civil society forum, which was established, they have there's competition of power inside the pathway. Resources come to them, the pathway. There's other groups like Citizen for Peace and Justice was established in Nairobi. Competition of a money, they have a pathway. They have nowhere to be seen. There's a quiet platform. And because for me, I'm not money oriented, I'm not power oriented. And always when I see them disagreeing, I will tell them. It's the same lesson that our politicians did. So there's no legitimate body that is mandated to accredit civil society. As I said, when we went to Addis, we were invited. Who is that person who can come with a body, say I'm a legitimate body, and Edmund, you voted for me to be a legitimate body plus others that we take the responsibility to accredit you. So some of them attack me because simply on ethnic line, some attacking because they're politically motivated, some attacking because they missed the opportunity, egos. Some of them are attacking me because why always he want to stand in the front there? But because I stand for the people. So you bear your pain, swallow your bitter pill until come and confront me. I'll provide you my answer, my position, why I start to stand like that. I'm a non-violent person.
That was the only thing that need clarification, and the rest will be digested and analyzed by the audience. Exactly. So you can move to the last questions. Yeah, thank you.
So for me, for the last question that you ask around what will happen from now, my idea is that if honestly His Excellency President and First Vice President did not change their attitudes, this country is unfolding. And they will never control it. What happened in Konyo Konyo may sound small, but normally anything begins with a small. Rain does not come fast. It have never happened that rain just comes. Normal rain, there's a small drops that send to you signal. Even if God the Creator can send rain with indicators of signal, rain is going to happen. So let us not undermine. Later on, I'm going to talk about the issue of the Konyo Konyo, even how much you issue statements. The power of the citizen is a power of water. You can't prevent when decided. And there's a triggers. When triggers come, the waves will never stop that trigger. That trigger will continue. And that's why our leaders need to take primary responsibility now if they want to leave. That's why I told them, if you want to leave your name in the books of good history, do it now. And one day we'll come to Zen Freedom Hall, we appreciate you. But if you want your names to go to a bad history, do it. You can kill Edmund, but you can't kill the citizens' pressure. When they decided, we have seen in Sri Lanka, we have seen it in Iraq, and we have seen in some parts of the country. We have seen in Khartoum. You can kill, they can be buried, you can burn them, you can torture them, you can humiliate them, you can demonize, you can do whatever pains you can do for them. But at the end, that increases the strength of the mobilization to take you out of power, which we don't want to go for that trend if we have political leaders that can take primary responsibility to realize their mistakes and accept their mistakes and go to a pathway that citizens are demanding to go to them for them to go to it. So that's those are my answers.
Thank you so much, Brother Edmund Yakani, for your analysis and answers to the questions posed before you. Basically, we have 3 questions on the comment section, which will be displayed in regard to this topic of extension. And while they are displaying those questions, the reality is, Edmund, without civil society or citizen approval, then the extension is imminent.
Obviously.
Because it meets their interests, all of them.
Exactly.
And that the people with the power, with the resources, representing the entire nation, so nobody can prevent them from extending whatever periods they want. So people are blaming those who represent the civil group or civil society, but the reality is the big fish agreed that they need to stay down under the water for the next period of time, and nobody will pull them out of that water. Secondly, the symptoms are now trying to appear, of which we will move and talk about it. During the roadmap, the dollar was at 700 pounds, $1. Until the central bank governor was removed and the new, with the Minister of Finance, and the new Minister of Finance jet in for the last 2 days. That's why you had now the rate of dollar is standing at 600 pounds. And nobody knows. By the dint of injecting hard currency into the black dollar, they have done it for the last 4 years and no change.
Exactly.
Normally, it tells you if you do things repeatedly and give you the same results and you continue doing it, then you are stupid. At the simple language. So you need to change the trajectory and come up with another modality on how to approach this thing. So it's very unfortunate that the leadership, including the economists, are not changing the gear of the economy. And the economy, the collapse of the economy is more than dangerous, the collapse of the political space. So it's sad enough. So display the 3 questions so that you answer them quickly. Then we move to this, the darkest part that are trying to manifest themselves in the surface of our nation currently. Isaac? Yes, that is the first question from Dol Chan. Okay, you are very clear, but the question is, what will the current government do? All the preparation that you have mentioned in the coming 2 years so that we have the conducive elections? If yes, then why not before the last period? The ordinary time, they did not do it. Basically, he is asking about the conducive environment for the next 2 years. The second question from Unijok, you know the government and the opposition has no will to implement the agreement. Even if they extended the government for more than years, what will be the next positions or possible solution, rather, in the short and the long term? Then the third question from Ton Philip Ayuen, what happened in Mayom County was a coordinated extrajudicial killing. The SSPDF, the national government says there was no authorization for that action. The question remains where did the state governor and SSPDF commander got powers from? Thank you so much, President. Under the scene, I will give you 2 minutes to answer the two questions, and then the third question will be in the second topic. Thank you.
Exactly. So my quick answer in 2 minutes to the two questions, each one 1 minute. I think right now, before we roll out the roadmap, the laws that have connection with elections need to be quickly passed. And by the way, one thing that I want to bring forward is that the current parliament even didn't understand their role. The current parliament role is to protect the agreement. The National Constitutional Amendment Committee, representing the parties, a document that comes from the National Constitutional Amendment Committee cannot be added an alphabet to it or subtract alphabet out of it by the parliament. Because if the parliament realizes they are disputing the document, they send it back to the National Constitutional Amendment Committee. Why? Because that committee have all the political parties, official delegates, civil society. So any consensus in the National Constitutional Amendment Committee is final. Parliament is only to bless. So parliament is not subjective. Some parliament have no power to add alphabet to what comes from there or subtract. And that's the problem of the legislation. So right now, they need to quickly roll out the legislations. Secondly, and this I'm answering both questions, by the way, at the same time. They need to roll out the legislation that are pending and have linked with elections. They need to call for national conference in an official way, disclose how much money. They say 15 billion. We say release this 15 billion to an account and customize the 15 billion for every ministry so that we see accountability and transparency, because millions of dollars were ate by NPTC and we have not seen any changes. What's the guarantee this time that this money cannot be ate? And these are SSP. So these are the things they need to do. But as I said, my answer is that the solutions to the success of the 2 years is depending too much on the opinion of Salva and Riek partnership. Not on everything. This is very clear. Let's make it very clear. Any failure, they will be blamed. The two will be blamed for any failure. Any success, the two have the opportunity to make the success. So that's my answer to the first short-term solution. That's why for me, the pressure point now, we have been talking about technocratic government, but then was illegal to talk about technocratic government. Now, this extension of 2 years give us a complete political legitimacy that we justify before the 2 years end. If they, actually the first year, if they did deliver, we are telling them, please quit. Technocratic government should be ready to take over. Because previously is an official original timeline expiring. Now, they have seek this extension. And remember, they have seek some 2 extensions before. We kept quiet. Now this extension, and that's why those who are politically motivated, this extension gives us a political legitimacy to ask the current government leaders to leave and give the government technocratic government. And that's why those who are pro-technocratic government, time is now to design the framework of how technocratic government will be elected. And right now we have legitimacy to talk about technocratic government. Because already, what else do you have at hand to convince us that we should talk about technocratic government? 3 years, you fail. You extend 2 years, you fail. What else do you have? The only way is pack and go. That's the only thing, by the way. Actually, they have bought for them their direct card. Our hands are now on direct card. They have used the yellow card. We gave them. They failed. Now there's nothing else. The next is please pack and go, and that's give the legitimacy. So the other question, as you said, go to Mayom. If I can take this advantage to tackle the two darkest incidents, so that I can get time at least to hear other people's opinion. Mayom incident. Mayom incident, we need to refer to it, is not an incident that just happened out of blue. It is a very packed issues from long time. Where does this incident Mayom started that we have seen? Right from the day when Stephen Boy was arrested, brought to Juba, judge, dismiss, and he was clever. He said, I pay my allegiance to your excellence. I have no problem. He left the country, established a movement. Instead of politically people being proactive, engaging him after he declared a movement as a player to engage, he's been ignored. He's been mobilizing. He's been issuing his statements. And I'm quite sure all of us who are audience here, some of us here have maybe from day one of the statement until the incident. And remember when he leaked how he faced the, and this is where I'm telling people who are pro-torture. You see, when the commissioner of Mayom was assassinated, he revealed how he faced his way of arrest. The level of torture, the level of inhuman that he had faced, he disclosed it, which he didn't disclose when he declared his movement. He didn't disclose it, by the way, how he faced the torture. But after the incident of Mayom commissioner, he opened the chapter and said, this is a way how I faced my dark days when I was arrested. These are the process undergone where I was taken to Giarda and all this and all this. He disclosed it to justify legitimacy of why he acts now militarily to take away the life of the commissioner or to launch that attack in Mayom. That has happened. He is no longer anymore a normal person. He is a legitimate armed and political opponent of the state because he disclosed himself, he come out publicly. So it means by the rules of engagement, he's a player. You treat him by the rules of engagement if you go to the military angle. By the rules of the engagement politically, you need to sit down with him on a table. And that's why day one, when he did, first, we condemn when the assassination of the commissioner happened because it's also inhuman. The commissioner's killing is inhuman, really, burning human beings. And we condemn that and we say, please, we need to see they as a conflicting parties observing rules of engagement. So that's happened. So, and there was a complete preparation for revenge attack. You have seen the incident after that incident of the attack of the commissioner, the killing of the commissioner. A convoy went, and the information I get that most of that convoy is a family more of oriented. Almost one family have lost quite a number of their family members in that convoy when they were attacked by Stephen and they were killed. They are there. And there's a trading messages where the leadership of South Sudan and the leadership of Sudan have agreed to exchange anybody who want to move at the border with arms. It's trading in the social media, where the leadership of Sudan Military Council were telling our President Section Salva, please, we have agreed with you today that anybody moving with arms at the borders, let's arrest jointly. And His Excellency President Salva have given him the case for the dog. Remember, when you come to the house, there's a dog, the dog didn't know, the dog will bark, the dog have to hold down. Then if you're given the food, when dogs see the food, the dog will shake his tail. Those are straight in the social media. So there's already a consensus between Juba and Khartoum to exchange that. But now, let's come to the latest incident when these 3 or 4 soldiers were arrested. One of the things that people like us, we condemn strongly because why? One, the act that was done in Mayom is inhuman and is degrading. Why is inhuman? Is not in line with the rules of engagement of warring parties. With international treaties, there's the concept of prisoners of war and there's the rights of prisoners of war. And if you might have seen the movie of God Must Be Crazy between the Russian and the American soldier, when the American soldier hold the gun, the Russian will tell the American, will lead him the rules of engagement. You must treat your prisoner of war with respect. You must respect the rights of your prisoner of war. When the American lose the gun and the Russian take it, when the Russian is chasing the American read the same law. And this law is enshrined in the South Sudan People's Defense Law and the rules of engagement. So what they did is a complete act of a terrorist behaviors. These are people that you have get hold of them as your opponent. Militarily, they become prisoners of war. So you cannot execute them. Now, if you want to execute them using court-martial is a legal process. Court-martial is not an extrajudicial process. You cannot just bring people and shoot. Why during our 21 years of the war, SPLA have to keep Sudan Armed Forces for almost over 20 years with us and hand over them after the signing of the CPA? They could have been executed. Because why SPLA believe on the rules of engagement before we convert them to South Sudan People Defense Force? It's the same institution. So the question comes, how do you do that? And besides that, look at how humiliating it is. The banning. Who are you banning? Are you banning a foreigner? You are banning your own citizen. And when you take the oath, I will stand to protect the country. And if you see the oath that they take, protect the citizens and respect the rule of law and respect the adherence to civilian rule. Where are those values? This act have never reflected. That's why we went publicly condemned. And for people like us, we're not only condemning, we have reached out to leadership of the country. That's why when you put pressure on the CDF, the same question, the last question was to ask, where does the governor and the commanders of SSPD on the ground got that authority of doing that act? When we question the CDF have to come out public. And his articles, I read you. He say he will punish those, and he say we don't want to hear message. We want to see automatical action. And that immediate response to the what? The response of the means of defense. And the spokesperson also denied that they're not informed. So the centers of power of military that could have made decision for court martialing. And remember, court martial have to undergo with the process. Look at the soldiers that were involved in rape, in looting, in killing in Ye. Were they executed like that? No. They have to face the military justice procedures. Even those who rape humanitarian workers in train house, were they executed like that? And then was there a different institution? It's the same institution, the same authority. So what is happening is a complete breakdown of rule of law, breakdown of adherence to civilian rule, and some leaders, wherever they are, they believe the same time they own the decision of deciding on such act, which is inhuman and degrading. And it's a God blessing, by the way. If we hear that that particular boy who did that documentary was killed, his death is a blessing for the respect of rights of South Sudanese. If he's killed, it is really a clear indicator the killer is not a South Sudanese. He's a visitor. Because what this boy documented has made a lot of thinking behind the behaviors of how our security and defense institutions behave. He is a miracle. He saved the people. He showed the people exactly what is happening. And you can see now. And this, for me personally, I would like to say the incident in Mayom, it is questioning the decision and the leadership of the president as commander-in-chief. The power of the commander-in-chief with respect of rights of prisoners of war is under question. And specifically, if president go quiet without holding accountable those who are behaving, those who are behind, that's why we're calling for an immediate accountability for those who committed. What are the things? To be honest with you, some people may lose their jobs. In immediate acts, some people will lose their jobs in unity state. The political leadership will lose their job. The military leadership will lose their job. The security intelligence will lose their job because that thing is not done in a disorganized manner. It was done like it's a complete state directives. People are tied. They are put in the front. Fire squad team was identified. Those soldiers are so short because they're not identified anyhow. They're supposed to be identified through a process. And the parade was done. Safa, Tiba, Silsila, Kazisila, Adrap. So it's a clear somebody owning an authority. Now, when the center of the authority, like Minister of Defense saying, we are not involved, spokesperson of the army, who represent the image of the chief of staff, who is the president, say we are not involved, we are not concerned. When CDF, who is in charge of technical military decision and operations, with the approval of the commander-in-chief, saying he's going to hold accountable, the president would have made an immediate dismissal of leaders and arrest even. And some people would have been now facing court of law. If that is a genuine political leadership in power, we could have immediately see shift in unity state of decisions on the power. That could have been. But anyway, what I like to say, this is a seed of genocide. What happened in Bentio is a complete seed of genocide. If you see all track record of genocide begins like that. do you feel the message? Look at that young boy message. That message is aiding revolution. When he say, okay, today you will kill me, but I would like to convey my message to the young people. Never allow the elders to abuse you and to manipulate this country. Look at the translated version of the conversation between the soldier and one of the detainees, which is translated in where is translated in English. Look at that message. That message is of a hero. And that message is not going to die free, by the way. That message is a power. So if His Excellency President believes that he owns the decision, he needs to make a quick shift of leadership in Bentiu. That will be like a clear remedy that he have responded to the misbehaviors and those who take the law into their hand without the center of an authority authorizing them. So that's what happened. And the same thing happened to the relatives. Those who are killed, their relatives are not going to watch. They're going to revenge. And the contradiction is that the security advisor of the president during the funeral of his brother said there's no revenge. Now, do you believe a security advisor of the president is not aware that soldiers belonging to Stephen Boy are arrested and they're going to be fire escort? Is he not aware? Can he confirm his words by stopping the fire escort? You would have told the governor, stop it. As a security advisor of the president, I've made a public statement that there will be no revenge for the loss of the lives of my brother. But that's a clear revenge. And even see the way people are laughing, look like it's a normal thing, like it's a ceremony, like you're slaughtering a goat or you're slaughtering a bull for celebration. Like, it's not like you're claiming of a life of a human being who is like you. What about if you're in the shoes of that? How do you feel? Look at the pain those soldiers have seen when they lie down, their eyes are tied, and they can hear the parades going on. And they have nowhere to run but to hear the cocking of the gun, the parade, and shot at them. And we say, we got the independence of South Sudan because we are marginalized and we are oppressed from the Arabs. Is that not the same act of our oppressors? Is that not the same act of those who marginalize us? Was it this not confirming Basiri's statement by saying, you leave the South Sudanese to go? They will not go for 10 years without coming back to us to seek for us to unify ourselves. Is that not a way of people are pushing us for unity? So political leaders of the country need to act immediately. We don't want to hear talking. We need to see people walk their talk. But unfortunately, time is going on, and we have never seen any response from the political leaders of the country, and specifically the commander-in-chief, because that's a complete military responsibility, not political. So for me, that's something that. Now coming to the Nimule incident, so that I can conclude with. The Nimule incident also gives you a signal.
Before you move to Nimule incident, Edmund, we need to exhaust this horrifying and traumatizing event that took place in Mayom County. You have mentioned it clearly, Brother Edmund. What happened in Mayom is something that will remain as a dark scar in the history of South Sudan. Whether we like it or not, it will be there. And to make it sad, the current leadership in Juba will be blamed currently and will be blamed in the future by the history, and will also be blamed by God in heaven. To be honest, Edmund, it was very unfortunate that the leadership always look at those of different voices like you and some of other activists and sees them as a threat to them and give a blind eye to one of them who is tarnishing the name of their leadership and also tarnishing the name of the entire nation. The question still remains now. Who gave Nguyen Montwil power to fire squads, soldiers, the prisoners of war, and burns one of them alive to death? Is it security advisor to the president, Tutkel? And if not him, then where did he derive his powers from? the governor. Secondly, you will confirm to us, Edmund, because you have many sources where you normally get your information. I received information 3 minutes before you came in that the soldier who recorded those 2 clips during extrajudicial killing has also been killed today morning in Unity State. And the person who revealed this information is one of the activists who is leading demonstration today in Unity State. Did you came across such information or not? Thirdly, what is your information or your appeal to the current leadership? Because the leadership seem many citizens appeal to the president that you need to relieve these 2 people from their positions. The governor of Unity State and your security advisor, subject them to frequent investigation. Now time is going as you put it, and no sign of concern from the president. Not even a condolence message from the president. And other people are saying president is not aware of such. As his spokesman condemned the incident, that is Honorable Michael McQuaid. There is also another information that the transitional leadership of Sudan has relieved the governor of Southern Kordofan.
Yes.
Because of this incident, which means what you were telling us or what the leadership is saying, that they had an MOU with the Sudan leadership in the case of any rebels across our borders, then we will be in a position to take it back to your country. Could possibly be not true if the leadership relieve their governors because of that. Lastly, how do you see South Sudan now at the international stage with those clips hanging around, considering the Geneva Conventions, International Human Rights Act? How do you see South Sudan? Looking at the recent pending extensions, which has not yet been agreed upon by Troika, and Troika, they are big fish at the international arena. Do you think these 2 clips will trigger their call for inclusive dialogue before extension? And do you think these 2 clips will invoke sanctions against South Sudan government officials? Thank you. Wrap it up, and then I will go to Nimule. You will go straight to Nimule incident, and then we wrap it up to some of the questions from our audience.
Yes.
I'm informed some of them have posed some questions at the comment sections. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just to go to your questions in a response of putting the questions all into a summary answer. 1, this incident have tarnished the image of South Sudan People's Defense Force. And internationally, South Sudan People's Defense Force will be subject as an institution for human rights due diligence process. It means anybody in South Sudan People's Defense Force uniform will be subject for due diligence. And normal due diligence are then supposed to be a sanctioned uniform leaders. But now the whole institution is tarnished. If, in this condition, if the leadership of this institution didn't respond adequately to the incident of Mayom, if they go silent. In some countries, the Minister of Defense is supposed to immediately resign. But because this is a party agreement, the Minister of Defense, the Chief of Staff are supposed to immediately resign, including even the security advisor of the president, including the military advisor of the president. They're supposed to resign immediately in the democratic practices, because if somebody below your leadership make that. Now, if you don't want to resign, what's the alternative? You don't want to resign in those seats, immediately you undertake action against that, not to subject you for resignation. Because you can't resign by subjecting the decision maker to an immediate processes, which the spokesperson of the South Sudan People Defense Force say from the side of the SSPDF. You know, up to now, the spokespersons are two, it's not one. Lurwai, on behalf of the SSPDF, say they're going to, first they use the language like this, he borrowed our words, they are disturbed and they're going to investigate. But we have not seen any process of investigation commission. Because actually it's supposed to tell us that we are disturbed and we have commissioned an investigation and the investigation have been rolled out.
Did you add anything in regard to KGKG incident? And they said the same words. And up to now, we have not had any information.
KGKG incident, at least they roll out investigation, but the report of the investigation was killed until the mother of the deceased children commit suicide because she have tolerated investigation has come. But now, taking the decision of the investigation into practical, it was delayed until this woman commit suicide. So that's a practical example. So for me, the image of the South Sudan People's Defense Force have gone. And we may lose, if the leadership of SSPDF didn't act, SSPDF may lose some international military aid. Remember, our defense force still need military aid in terms of exchange of skills, technology, all of these particular military things that you have. The military of today is not like the military of those days. Technology matters. Sellings of technology, exposure to technology, the use of technology, we may not have because anybody don't temper. They say, what about the behaviors they did? Are they not going to use now drones to target people in their houses? So there'll be a lot of, we have subject the South Sudan People's Defense Force to a very bad international scrutiny. If the leadership does not respond, the only rescue is that the leadership need to respond immediately to gain remedy of not subjecting the institution for tarnish of an image. And that responds to quite a number of your questions. And in terms of Geneva Convention, because Geneva Convention have prisoners of war. And do you know why Sudan? Let me tell you, even the MOU exists. Do you know why Sudan act? Because Sudan didn't expect extrajudicial killing. Sudan said, we have arrest, you are rebels, here are they for you. Under Geneva Convention, they become a prisoners of war. But Sudan didn't expect that they are going to be dehumanizedly, extrajudicially killed. And likely, even that Sudan top leadership might have not given the approval for the exchange of the forces. Yes, they may have the MOU, but that MOU, if we don't execute, the center of the decision have to be taken. So one of the things that I assessed with some contacts in Sudan is that the decision of the center in Khartoum were annoyed when they see the claim. They say, when did we give that directives? Yes, we have the arrangement, but when? They say it's a government. Get him out of power. That could have happened, the same thing from our side. You receive them. Who authorized you to execute them? Get out of power. The same thing like the way Sudan have acted. That could have been the leader. So my advice, if you ask me as an honest advice, with due respect and with an honor to the political leaders of the country, the commander-in-chief need to act now without wasting any time to show leadership remedy to that situation. Because why? It's no longer a crime. Why is it not a crime? Justification are clear institutionally. Minister of Defense say we're not involved. Official spokesperson of the government say we are not informed, we are not involved, we condemn. The spokesperson of the army, which zero his statement from everything, say we are disturbed and we are not informed and we're going to investigate. These three messages: warrant for dismissal, warrant for an immediate arrest, investigation, and trial. It means when the information comes from these three sources, the chief of staff, the minister of defense, the official spokesperson of the government, the military spokesperson, these four centers of messages tells commander-in-chief was not in charge of that decision. And the response is commander-in-chief automatically authorize discipline that are prescribed by the laws for that decision. And unfortunately, time is running and that decision is missing. My advice to president is to act on that Mayom. And by the way, we may see it as a Mayom case. It may be in Mayom, but is a factor of justification for mobilization somewhere. Because it will be used as a reference. It will be used as a reference. So for me, that's my advice to the president, is immediately to act and make sure all necessary political, military decisions are taken to respond to the situation in Mayom. Other than that, you cannot condone that. Completely, that cannot be condoned in whatever circumstances. And history is already registered. Historians have already written it down. Again, you don't back that it's going to book of history. It's already entered. The only thing is you need to see the endorsement. It's already entered and it's already qualified and it's maybe much more. So historians have already written it right from the day one. When the clip is out and confirmed, this clip is accurate, this clip is authentic, history have taken the notice. So we are talking about history anymore. We're talking about respond to what history have documented already. Now, of course, we heard about this issue of Bentu this morning, about the strikes that are going on. Of course, it's not only one person, it's many people who are. And then, of course, remember, this is unity state. This is Mayom. This is Burnuer. You can hold the power, but you cannot control the people. People will strike. The relatives of those will strike. So if they take away the life of that young boy, they have fueled the crisis more. And that's another, by itself, is another crime, apart from the crime of the extrajudiciary killing. You see, these are double crimes that require no condone by the leadership of the country and the center of military decision, which is the commander-in-chief. Because for me, honestly, sincerely, official spokesperson confirm it's a crime. CDF confirm is a crime. Minister of Defense confirm is a crime. Official spokesperson confirm is a crime. What else do you want? What else justification do you want? Unless you're telling the nation that the person who made that decision is more powerful than the me who control the decision. Unless is that a scenario. But if that wasn't the scenario, an immediate one happened. Remember with Bakasoro, what happened in Yambio? Was he not flown to Juba? Remember with Elia Wire in Wow, what happened? Was he not flown to Juba? Was he not by then in sitting seat? What is different with unity? So for me, my advice, if there are people who are listening to us here, and I know some of them are listening to us here, they have access to the president, our humble call to the president to respond, and even to show a solidarity to the family of those soldiers. What about if those soldiers were among the soldiers who might have shot at a tank of the enemies during our days of the struggle, and their bullet that they shot at the enemies have rescued us to gain the independence? Now, under the independence, they are questioning check and balance. That's the way they are humiliated. Can we write a little background history about those soldiers who are killed and their contribution to the benefit of us having independent state? If that is written down and put on the table to the leadership, will the leaders not sympathize, even if they went wrong? Now, how many people have committed atrocities politically today? They're in the political leadership. Were they executed like that? Alela Figapa, Bokura Medina, but Bokura Asfar, Aswed, Black, they are still rewarded. Or simply because those are innocent civilians without a backup, without political leadership, and because they don't threaten the center, now that's why they are used as a symbol of showing aggression. But why don't you show aggression to those ones that are close to you and have more, actually even done crime worse than this? So for me, it's really a call that the leadership of the country, my advice to president, is take over that. And that's why from here, I will cross to the incident of Nimule so that I can get the questions. Nimule incident is clear that the economical pressure, the absence of rule of law, the continuous lack of respect of human rights, and the continued delay of political leadership for transition the country from violence to peace mounted to the incident happened in Nimule Road. People are taking advantage of all this confusion where there's no respect of human rights, there's no respect of rule of law, political leadership is dragging feet in transforming the country from violence to stability, economical pressure is coming, you are telling people no money, but you see you are enjoying very nicely, your motorcades are driving nicely, your houses are very happy. We hear stories your children are being caught up with billions of dollars in airport, with some of your children enjoying parties, counting dollars, 100 notes, and those who back up you to be in the leadership are suffering. That's the consequence in Nimule Road. So Nimule Road is a consequence. The ambush that happened to the buses is a clear consequence. Is that nobody claim responsibility now. And we should, and I would say also, let us not rush, some of us, let us not rush to judge. But of course, for people like us, we're doing our investigation. And I can share later on with the audience after my findings of what happened exactly, who is behind it, who drive it, because we are neutral voice that we don't take side with anybody, whatever we see. But we strongly condemn it because it is something that we cannot condone to claim our own lives. But it's an indicator of frustration, is an indicator that it does not shift in the political leadership to respond to the root causes that trigger that particular incident. We're not going to see relative. And that means Nimule Road is now subject for anything. And remember, that road is a very long road. And it's a road that is subject for soldiers who are frustrated without salaries. Easily anybody can take advantage and organize themselves. So for me, we're still doing our background check on who is behind it, but we condemn the act and we really ask those who are behind it that that's a wrong act. If you are politically discontented, don't use the lives of the civilians to display. You use the right target. Civilians are not the right target for whoever have a political discontented position or political grievances. Express by targeting the right direction. Don't target civilians. That's really unaccepted. But of course, as I said, is an indicator of a signal of some wrongdoings that are going on, whether politically, economically, or socially in our society. So we need to see that coming. So this is what I want to wrap up that. And not only Nimule, by the way, we have Ekotos, 3 humanitarian workers were killed. In less than a week of Nimule, Torit County was attacked. People were killed. So incidents happening. We're claiming lives. Violence are now becoming normal among our communities. And we're losing lives of our own innocent citizens, like as if it's not lives of human beings. The country is breaking down into violence. Juba is the only place now you at least move. But the moment you're driving out of Juba, you start questioning yourself, am I going to be safe? So for me, political leadership of the country need to pull up their socks. And pulling up their socks is making sure there's a respect of rule of law, there's a respect of human rights, and there's a political commitment to transition the country from the situation now to peace in a genuine manner, not in this buying off of defectors and all this. That's going to happen. And the element of using defection as a political theory of controlling check and balance on the authority at the center is what happened in Kitgum. The first day, they are very good in Khartoum, laughing. Dollars were given to them. They ate it. The dollars disappear. They're looking for formulas of how to get another dollars. They call Juba. We see you not responding. Send our delegates. Delegates are not there. Again, they are divided. Now they are fighting on their own in the Kitgum. And previously, they have been denying each other. Oh, we don't have a difference. It's a normal thing. Oh, no, we know. Now it's clearly what we hear. But then, as the rumors has come to the truth, Odwaro is not the deputy. And as a claimant, Odwaro came to Khartoum, that Odwaro demanded that Olony should be dismissed. People say, no, that's not correct, Garwich. Now, he acted. He dismissed Olony. He put now upward. He put Odwaro. Of course, in terms of manpower on the ground, Odwaro is a political deputy, not a military deputy. So we're going to see now a new trend of Shuluk and Nuer clashing as a loyalist of Olony from one side and as a loyalist of Gatwich in another side. And that division that happened, we don't know how much have they assassinated from the different ethnic background that are within their constituency. How many Shuluk might have died under Gatwich and how many Nuer might have died under Olony? We don't know this information. But already these two ethnic groups are split up. May happen very far, but it may come closer to the center of authority. So all these are results of lack of timely and genuine political responses to grievances that is happening in the country. Thank you. Let me hear what next.
Thank you so much, Brother Edmund. We're actually in the dark time and the dark days, but everything squarely lies on the current leadership. Is either to redeem themselves or to make the history worse. And if they pay attention to read across the history of East African countries during the first 10 to 20 years of the independence, they will not believe that what were documented were not the actual incidences that took place. The same thing will happen to South Sudan. All these things will be documented. And after 50 years from now, whoever will read those documentation or through those YouTube will not be in a position to believe that this is where South Sudan came from. It's very unfortunate that the leadership is not taking things seriously. It's just focusing in Juba on how to divide the little money and how to maintain the peace within Juba. And now people always come to the presidency reporting numerous things in J1 every day. But the actions is 0.05. All the ministers, all the vice presidents. It's very unfortunate, and we'll wait and see what will happen. We have one question under the comment section. Thank you so much from Solomon. Solomon said, Edmund Yakani, I have been your passionate follower for the close to 5 years. All your love for our country amazed me and led me to inspiration. Today, I need your thoughts on one particular things. From your perspective, you believe that if there is a change of will from Kir and Riek, the agreement can be speedily implemented, perhaps even in 3 months. Riek himself stressed the same things during his speech of the extension. My question is, what can be done to let Kir and Riek unite their will? Thank you so much, Brother Solomon, for that question. You have reminded me. And then another question from Ton Philip. Mr. Edmund, what do you think is going wrong with MPs? Neither they are condemning the violence like extrajudicial killing, intercommunal conflicts, corruption, injustice, arbitrary arrest of journalists and detentions, and so on, nor questioning the concerned authorities and ministries or ministers. Thank you so much, my brothers, for such questions. Mr. Edmond, you will answer them 2 minutes, and these questions of our brother Solomon reminded me. People has already developed a doubt within this extension period. When you look at the speech of Riek in the Freedom Hall, Riek mentioned 2 things. Number 1, he said that the IO has no political space to talk to the citizen. And he requested the president, can you make it clear here today, at least to give us that space? Riek said there are some bills which were passed in the absence of IO in the parliaments. Those bills must be returned to the parliaments. Must, mark those words, must be returned to the parliaments. These 2 statements from first vice president gives everyone doubts that nothing new will happen in this extension period. To my brother Philip Pon with these questions, is a very nice question. Our parliamentarians, we are having bureaucratic government, one of the hugest government currently in Africa, but no single day actually has ever parliamentarians come out clearly and condemn, send condolence messages, nor even to do anything, at least to show a certain level of maturity, a certain level of thinking that you are representing a certain party. Because we are convinced now they're not representing South Sudanese, they're representing their bosses. But at least they can do something on behalf of their bosses. Edmund Yakani, the floor is yours, my brother. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In the first question, to be honest and sincere, the 2 principles have devolved deficit in trust and confidence to a very deep level. And I've used it, by the way, when I was in Freedom Hall. And I think Riek quoted it that I call it as a deficit because I want to get advantage for both of them to respond. At least Riek respond. His Excellency President didn't respond. Of course, he's president. Maybe he know how to respond to it in a technical way. I give him benefit of doubt that if that can be responded in a different way, I give that benefit of doubt. But clearly, if we, the challenging thing is that all options were tried to nurture trust and confidence before them, or between them, or to make them regain trust and confidence. There are incidents of reconciliation in the history of the SPLA until we got our independence. Those incidents were there. And when we got our independence before 2013, late Archbishop Paulino Lukuduloro, Daniel Dengbul, Paride Taban went to them when they had things are brewing. People are going to go for classes, remember? They were met, and both of them came out and told the religious leaders, we have no differences. Less than a month, the whole cabinet was dismissed, Riek was dismissed. But these faith leaders are with you. You gave us different information, but you're now acting differently. That's what we have. The latest test that makes people are doubting, the kiss of the Pope on their feet, and which have never happened in the history of such religious leaders kissing feet, the normal wash, as Christianity taught us. But these are two, or all of them are Christian leaders, except Abdul Baghi. Maybe of course, people challenge him when the visit of the Pope came where he didn't stood up. Maybe it's because of his faith. But the rest are Christians. And we used to claim when we were fighting for our independence, we are a Christian-oriented state. The kiss of the Pope, which we feel it is the biggest act of mediation, doesn't work. What next? Still, I give benefit of a doubt that if we could have a regional figure that can push them. But you know, one other thing that also I think they didn't read it well at their capacity. They didn't read well that the regional power, the regional positioning, it have its end, it have its limit. When it reaches its limit, they'll find it rough because they are our leaders. We respect them, we honor them. We need them to exit in a peaceful and honorable way from power. We don't want them to exit in the same way Gaddafi or Saddam Hussein or anybody. We feel it will be a humiliation to our history of a struggle and the time they have wasted in the bush, being it His Excellency President Salva. The time he wasted, that bitter moment where he stand up, whatever the price is, my struggle is to liberate my people. Now having an authority, the action is going contrary to all the struggle that they have done, which for pain some people like us to see their struggle didn't mount it to jubilation, but it mounted to sorrow. Because we initially to see, look at the images of the struggle. Look at His Excellency President Salva at that time. Look at his body. Look at the energy. Much of his time he wasted. He could have defected and joined Khartoum like others. Or he could have just gone somewhere and say, I'm tired. But because the belief and the spirit of Anyanya One is in his heart, his struggle, why is it now that he is at the center of an authority? That memory cannot inform decision of having a pathway to cross or a pathway of delivering us. I wish still there's opportunity to delegate. And that's why, like when I was seeking an attention that Your Excellency President, allow us to see you because we have never met with you. Initially, my aim was to communicate some of these messages, not in this public platform, is to have with him one-to-one and share with him the bitterness that we have in our heart when we see the days of the struggle compared to the current way of governance. It's painful because we believe that people like His Excellency President, Dr. Riek Machar, have the nation in their heart. It will be a blessing for them to say, for the sake of the nation, this is a decision we have made. Look at today at Kenya. The bitterness between Raila Odinga and Uhuru during 2017 elections. Look today how they end up. But why are we not learning? Why are we not expressing that maturity of politics in administering our state? So for me, still there's an opportunity. We need to keep on sending out messages. We know that they are at a very bitter level, but sometimes maybe a miracle may happen. And that miracle will happen if we are not silent. Let's keep on speaking and let's keep on telling them. And as I said, until the two principles reach consensus of trust and confidence, this country can have a shift. But the moment they remain with a bitterness, they will subject this country to bad things. Unfortunately, is that they're at a leadership position that any single act of theirs is recorded in history. May not be painful to them per now because they're in power, but will be painful for generations to come. That may say by then one of our own community member or of our son of our area did this, where history is taught in the schools and the information about them is only negative information, nothing positive. With 21 years of bitterness struggle, mosquito, eating nothing, facing sicknesses, escaping attempts, and the day you have the power, both of them have the power, they did something opposite to the track record of the struggle they have been suffered for. That is really disturbing and it's painful. We wish that they are listening to us. We wish that they should reconcile like what other countries have done. The closest is Kenya here, Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. But also, before I could finish, the coming of Raila Odinga to power in Kenya, we should not undermine that, by the way. That is going to bring a shift of regional power. And remember when Raila was giving in his campaign, and I don't know whether the leadership in Juba is following Raila's messages. When he came to Juba for the bridge, he speak like a president that have smelled the chair is just here. It's a matter of days. It's a matter of the ballot box. I'm going to sit in the chair. Look at the way how he insulted us technically. He said, you South Sudanese, bridge, you're naming it freedom. School, you're naming it freedom. It means you are lacking freedom. Take your guns to the barracks and leave freedom to prevail. Don't name bridges and schools freedom. That's an insult, by the way. It's a very diplomatic insult. But now he's coming a president. So His Excellency President Salva and Riek Machar must be conscious about Raila Odinga coming to power. And he's not anybody. He's a Luo. He's a Luo. I want to repeat. He is a Luo. And you know the alliance is around him with our politicians. So he believed that actually originally we come from that messy country. You open Kakuma since 1983 until today. I have not closed Kakuma. Kakuma is at least yours. And you say you're Luos, I'm coming to you. You will see the power. So that coming of Raila in Kenya require regional political analysis. Either it's going to be negative or it's going to be positive. But my assumption is that it's going to be a pressure that nobody will tolerate it. So they should take advantage of the current moment to shift gears, as you said. So political leadership shifts gears by the interest of their citizens. If you cannot shift gears by the interest of your citizen, then that's a big challenge for your leadership. That's the message I want to bring forward, that I like to put forward. The MPs we have, by the way, our MPs' loyalty is not to the parliament. Our MPs' loyalty is to the cliques that they have within their party during the nomination or the selections authority. By the way, those MPs are not one constituency. Those who claim they're from SPLM, not SPLM. It is a camps of the cliques of the center of powers in SPLM. Even internal, they have their own crisis. Even the IOs, even the OPPs, the SOAS, they are not one, by the way. They have godfathers that are put. So, you know, they have to check the godfathers. When the godfathers say, Eta can jeribu, Allah can jala na soko na be sacrifice Eta. So, how will you speak when you operate that environment? You want to raise, you're raising up your hand up into the speaker. Hey, honorable speaker, when you up your hand, somebody look at you. Then the eye that looks at you determines the way how you are going to speak. What type of parliament are you going to do? So we should not expect from them anymore. This incident of Mayom, if we are to have a real parliament, could have paralyzed the function of the executive in a minute. If we have a parliament that is really a parliament of the people, could have paralyzed the executive in a minute. President could have been summoned. Come and give a national address that is inhuman and degrading and even against the concepts of calling for an independent state. It is again an act against the value of our national anthem. Let's follow our national anthem. What are the words? When we're singing it, and that's a symbol of the nation. Look at the wording of our coat of arms. Look at the interpretation of our flag that is flying everywhere. So that act particularly contradict all national values we have. That could have resulted. That's what I'm saying. In a better countries, Minister of Defense immediately resignation. Chief of Staff immediately resignation. Specifically, is official confirmed by official spokesman of the government. My friend, it would have been a big deal. But of course, the godfathers, maybe the consultation of the godfather say, still, you remain quiet. And I can check. Ana Murta, Ana mind the muscular, Kantar for either, but there you go ahead. Maybe that's what we're waiting for. But time is going. By the way, public governance is determined by the count of response per the incident occur. The incident occurred today. You went quiet for 1 day. Automatically, people lose doubt on your power when you're going to decide next tomorrow. You must, public governance, something happen now. You must act now. You don't act now. Automatically, the enemies of your authority provide an alternative interpretation on your behaviors and your way of how you treat that thing. So right now, as we're speaking, there's a lot of interpretation on the Bentiu incidents. Who are they? The opponent of the center of the power will do that interpretation. So my appeal is that as South Sudanese are listening, and they are listening to everything, as an objective opinion, honestly, I wish His Excellency President should act immediately on all these subjects I've discussed. The peace agreement and the challenge now, you know the challenge we have. When the peace agreement was passed, another minister came to me in the Freedom Hall. Ask Edmund, you have made this statement of South Sudanese problem with South Sudanese solution with South Sudanese money. We are broke. I say, what brokenness? I have seen over 20 motorcade, and each motorcade is escorted with more than 10 Land Cruisers, and they're not been packed in Juba. With the fuel very expensive. How do you get that fuel? Where is the money you get for that fuel? Repair, service of those cars. Take responsibility. So my message is, our leaders need to take responsibility. Otherwise, they're deadening themselves. And maybe one answer is to the question asked about advantages and disadvantages of the roadmap. Advantage of the roadmap, if it's taken serious. And by the way, one thing that I like to put it as a sequencing, because I don't go to the details of the roadmap. The sequencing is that the only way the roadmap will look as a genuine roadmap, and this is what I told the politicians when we're consulting us, it is all the spending task, legislation in the parliament, the boycott of the IO, allocation of money, graduation of unified forces, reconstitution of political party act, electoral commission, national constitutional amendment commission. All this need to happen from the day of the Freedom Hall until 22nd February. If they don't happen, there's no any more trust that from 22nd February for 24 months they're going to do miracles. There's no. If you're a player, you are going to score a penalty. The goal is not determined by the kick. The goal is determined by the breathing you have when you're watching at the ball, when the goalkeeper stands and you're watching at the ball. So the advantage of this roadmap is only if from now until 22nd February, this last 4 months or 5 months, if the politicians were able to shift political advantages, they will gain the return of the international support. Yes, of course, some of my colleagues who are civil society were believing that, the statement which came from Traker about the consultation, that statement is supposed to come in advance before the day of the Freedom Hall. It comes after the Freedom Hall. So the statement they issued yesterday or today, the joint statement of the Traker and the EU, many calls me that, Edmund, now, the second statement is contradicting the first one. I say international community have their interests. If the devil is in power and give them returns back home, they don't care. They don't care, by the way. So it's not a question of, we should not depend on what Traker position is, what EU is. We shouldn't base on that. We should base on ourselves. Because those ones also, they operate their interests, their foreign policy. If the foreign policy tell them that X is a giant and X will offer us contract, they will go with it. That's why you see a bit of like, hey, we give you the elbow, but please show us political will. Those are the international games. So that should not be a determining factor on our behaviors, how we deal with our leaders. That should be an extra. That should be, the referee on the ground, on the playground. It's us. It's not the lions and men. Those are lions and people. Those striker and EU, and these are the fourth referees. We should not depend too much on them. So if they want to gain the support of the region and the support of the international community, our leaders, for successful roadmap, they need to do things from now until 22nd February. Otherwise, this roadmap will not gain that interest. And also, if they don't shift political, even if there's a billions money, by the way, even if we have billions money, if the two principles have not regained trust and confidence, that money is nothing. So in conclusion, I would like to say, we as a citizen, silence should not be an option. And if we're speaking, we are losing our lives. The books of heaven knows why we lost our lives. Because we have not committed a crime against the state. And that's why the protest in Konyo, which you have raised, we didn't tackle it, is that is a signal. And I see Deputy Mayor coming, threatening, we don't have this. The statement is, Sudan have spoken that. Salah Ghost today is indicted. So we could have been more communicating, what do you call a reconciliation message. We should reconcile with our citizens. We should tell them we felt the pain. Sorry, let's talk. Let's dialogue. But if you want to scare our population, that because we have the latest ammunitions, we have the latest bullets, that is a wrong message. That's a wrong response. When the massive come, kill the 10. You can kill the 10, but the 10, when they die, the millions will work on you. And these bullets are not forever. These bullets, as you shoot, you need to change Kazina. If I get a Kazina there, hundreds have reached on you. That's not the approach we need to go. So we need to reconcile among ourselves. And my aim is that citizens, let's not be violent. Let us be non-violently, but also say, and finally, I would like to use this platform to call on immediate release of the female journalists that are detained. We have put messages. We are calling for these female journalists to be released. I know we follow them. We've been tracking them. We know they're facing challenges. That's why we communicated today that we don't want to see this lady subject for torture of any form or harassments or anything, intimidation. Though rumors are coming that her hair was cut out from her head, which is by itself is already a violation of her rights, cultural rights, by cutting hair of somebody. Simply, and the excuse that because she's arrested, she have not shown her identity that she's a journalist, but she's a non-journalist reporting for VOA. So we add our voice that we're calling upon our authorities with respect and with honor, with a non-violent attitudes. Let them free this lady unconditionally. She's a journalist, and we know her. Everybody knows her job, and her aim is to provide information to the society. Because, as I said, when I was working on the case of Libya with the UN Commission of Inquiry, suppressing freedom of expression is mobilizing the citizen to rebel against the system. That's my last message.
Thank you so much, Brother Edmund Yakani, for your time and for your words and concern about the nations and the affairs of our country. You put it clearly, international community are not the determining factor to our challenges, because they have seen there is competition globally between China and US, and Russia issue with Asian countries, Europe countries rather. US or Troika is not willing to lose some African countries to the hand of China. And China is now becoming a threat to them. China is dominating each and every African country. So US, even if they decide to be harsh on any particular country, they had that thoughts at the back of their mind that if we withdraw fully from this country, then China will replace us, and we will not like it in the long run. So they always reserve themselves, will not rely much on them. The issues are too many in our country to talk at one day. We'll still have another chance to call you back, maybe in the course of this week or maybe over weekend, once you investigate who is behind the Nimule incident, and also to give government a humble time to see whether they will respond to the inhuman act which were committed in Mayom County, at least to get more information on our deaths. Thereafter, we'll schedule another conversation so that we can also come and share some of our facts on the desk. It's very unfortunate indeed for things that are happening currently, and people were trying to convince citizens to buy the idea of extension. But before some of the citizens actually buy the extension as the commodity in the market at the political arena, things are now turning to be ugly at a certain rate. Mr. Edmund, I give you 2 minutes to give your final remark or your last parting shot. Thereafter, we'll close our show because we have been here for too long. It's 2 hours, 30 minutes. And we'll resume our conversation maybe over weekends. Thank you so much.
My final word, thanks for all of you. My only message, I repeat the usual message, South Sudanese, how much we have political difference among ourselves. If we're arguing, let's argue with responsibility, with a clear rationale. Let's not too much load our arguments with hate speech, with hatred, but also let's not remain silent, because silence should not be an option. But whatever we're doing, we should remember of the values enshrined in our national anthem, the interpretation of our flag, our coat of arms. And we must stand up as nationalists for national cost. Yes, some of us, our lives, we don't know when will be taken. We may lose them, but let's lose them for the great history of generations to come, not to face the same challenges and the same sufferings we have today. Blessed are those who work for better life for generations to come. God will receive them in heaven. How much crimes we have committed. If us calling for respect of rule of law, respect of human rights, and respect of people's life and adherence to transparency and accountability, if mounted to a crime that will take our lives, let it be. But that should be in return of having a better nation when we went to the graves because of calling for transparency and accountability and respect of human rights. And God will handle those who misinterpret our call and take it as a factor for claiming our lives. They have nothing to live longer. They will die and they will follow us. But the history that will be written about them is negative. And if we're Christians, the day of the judgment will determine their actions. Let God bless us and let God bless South Sudan.
Thank you so much, Brother Edmund Yakani, the CEO of CEPO and one of our prominent activists in South Sudan, for your time, your words, your thoughts, and everything, your commitment to see a free, a just society, and South Sudan, which is in peace with our citizens. Thank you so much. We will too analyze the issue of regional politics maybe next time. And we will see now the coming of Baba, as you put it before, is a threat to East Africa leadership, and most especially to President Museveni, who always use his experience and age to oppress other leaders from East Africa region. He always speaks from experience and project himself to be the oldest of all. So if Raila make it to State House in Nairobi, and then he will neutralize the assumption from Uganda president, and they will speak at the equal stage as age mates and as people who are informed politically, who joined political arena as early as 1960s and are still in that angle up to now. Thank you so much for that. And if you want to say something about it, sorry for taking you back, then you have 1 minute. And if not, then we will end our show.
Let's wait for that moment. But Raila is a new player, as I say, Luo, aged, and he will tell Museveni. And of course, fixing Museveni is fixing Museveni plus his friends that Museveni have in the region. So that's the implications. But let's discuss it this time.
That's true. Thank you so much.
Anyway. Let's wait for his speech, because also his first speech of presidency will tell us what messages he's sending to the region. And remember, Kenya cannot be compared with countries that are not democratic and that's what
genuine. Exactly, that's what he said, that we cannot compare Kenya with South Sudan, with Somalia, with the Democratic Republic of Congo, with Uganda, Kenya cannot be compared with the worst.
Yeah,
Kenya
exactly.
should be compared with the best.
So Kenya
That
cannot
statement
also
is still
befriend.
fresh in our
Exactly. It means also
mind.
Kenya cannot befriend. That means Kenya cannot befriend the worst. And Kenya
Exactly.
will never allow the worst to misbehave to extend their worstness. So let's wait
That's
for
true.
Raila's in the State House.
Thank you so much to my fellow South Sudanese countrymen and women. Thank you so much, those who are watching us on Facebook, on YouTube. Thank you so much. It's because of you. That's why Lagos State is working. Thank you so much. And we end our interview.
Jali chup ayana belenna mamurta Sudan mujaja mafira alaina Jalna meidin bainana rabuna Belena taban min zaman ya Rabbuna Jali chup ayana belenna mamurta Sudan mujaja mafira alaina Jalna meidin bainana rabuna
It's your boy Young Ajibin that time. Pancho Lagos State, Panchi America, Panji Dual, Pancho Lagos State, Panchi America, Panji Dual, Ban Walk on the lake, Kankara water no watching, Oga level lake, Gear, Wow, Very Lake, Panda with Yae, Panchi America, Panya Dual, Vano, Chingatonga Pandon, could you ever buy a check out? Papu Panda Jiro, what they are be Dual eventing. Panchi America, Panji Dual, Pancho Lagos State, Panchi America, Panji Dual, Ban Walk on the lake, Kankara water no watching, Oga level lake, Gear, Wow, Very Lake, Panda with Yae, Panchi America, Panya Dual, Vano, Chingatonga Pandon, could you ever buy a check out? Paku Panda Jiro, what they are be Dual eventing.